Oh, mother. As I excitedly watched a show during my first trip to the Bahamas, my mother-in-law approached me, stealthily reached into my bag, and pulled out a covered passport. Oh, that's the... Ignoring my protests, she threw the passport into the torch. Oh no. Right in front of my eyes, the passport burned up along with its cover. Facing my stunned expression, she coldly declared, "No need for a daughter-in-law who fools around like an idiot on a trip." Right, Greg? Caught off guard by his mother's actions, Greg hurriedly responded when called upon. Oh, yeah. Mom's right. From here on, it should just be family having fun. Kristen, don't follow us. Exactly. Now that you don't have a passport, hurry up and cry for help at the embassy. I'm sure they'll help you if you play up the poor orphan card. Kristen, you're good at that, aren't you? Indeed. Maybe the embassy will even send you back to the States. If you tell them you've never been able to travel because you had no parents. By getting sympathy to marry our son. You surely know how to play your cards right, Kristen. Mom, don't say too much, or it'll seem like I married a poor kid out of kindness. Witnessing them mock me loudly, I felt my emotions cool off. There was no point in enduring and pretending to be family with them anymore. I apologized to the staff for the disturbance and swiftly left the scene. I am Kristen. I lost my parents in an accident when I was young. And grew up in a relative's house. Although my relatives were kind, I could never be as spoiled as I was with my real parents. And I decided to go to a boarding high school as soon as I graduated from middle school. After high school, I worked hard at part-time jobs while on a scholarship at university, managing to support myself. That's when I met Greg, who was an employee at the bar where I worked. His father was an executive at a major company, and unlike me, he never had to worry about money from a young age. It was his first time interacting with a stereotypical hardworking student like me. And he took a liking to my constant amazement and started taking me to various places. Greg and I, having never met someone like each other before, started dating. As I was about to graduate from university, he proposed. I was delighted at the prospect of having my own family and accepted his proposal, deciding to marry him as soon as I graduated. However, Greg's mother was vehemently opposed to our marriage. Upon hearing about my background, she despised me even before meeting me, believing that a child without parents must have been poorly raised. When we went to formally introduce ourselves for the marriage, she vehemently argued how unsuitable I was to be Greg's wife. Kristen, can you cook chili con carne? It's my son's favorite dish, you know. I'm afraid I have never tried cooking it. Oh my. Then, how about macaroni and cheese? Well, I haven't. At least you understand French dining etiquette, right? I'm afraid. I've never been to such a restaurant. When I said that, my mother-in-law exaggeratedly sighed. Greg, are you really going to marry this girl? Marrying someone who hasn't even been taught the basic cooking or manners by her parents. You'll be embarrassed, you know. Kristen is still a student, so there are things she doesn't know. I'll teach her from now on, so it's fine. But the upbringing is different. Even if you say you'll teach her, there's a limit. Despite her continued opposition, my father-in-law was the one who calmed her down. Honey, it's fine. But Greg's an adult. Let him decide on his own spouse. If you say so. But there's one condition. Her condition was that we live with them after getting married. Greg, who was close to his parents, was positive about living together. And I believed that living together would gradually bridge the gap with my mother-in-law. However, living with her was not as sweet as I had hoped. Did you buy this shirt for Greg, Kristen? Oh, yes. One was torn, so I bought a replacement. Don't make Greg wear such cheap stuff. My mother-in-law said this and threw the shirt I bought into the trash. Oh no. As I reflexively picked the shirt from the trash, she glared at me as if looking at something dirty. That's why I hate it. You don't have to buy anything for Greg anymore. It looks shabby if he wears something bought with your cents. Okay, I got it. Initially, Greg would defend me from his mother, but gradually, influenced by her daily badmouthing, he started to take her side. Kristen, did Mom scold you again today? Yeah, I bought some sale items at the supermarket. And she told me to stop because it looks poor. Greg used to laugh it off, but now he sighed deeply like his mother. Seriously, get over this poverty mindset. If you keep doing this, I'll be embarrassed to take you out. Don't say that. Maybe what Mom said was right. Greg, stop talking like that. Despite the situation, my father-in-law remained kind to me even after we got married, cautioning both his wife and Greg about their remarks. However, with meetings and business trips keeping him busy, he was rarely home. And I found myself isolated and unsupported. On the day my father-in-law returned from a business trip, he approached me as usual, concerned about how things had been in his absence. Kristen, I hope you haven't had any unpleasant experiences again. I wish my wife would see the good in you and that Greg would take your side. Thank you. Just hearing you say that makes me feel saved. I'm sorry I can't help much, always being away on business trips. That's okay, I'm always happy with the wonderful souvenirs you bring back. As we spoke amicably, he suddenly proposed an idea. How about we all go on a trip together next time? A change of scenery on a trip might deepen our family bonds. A trip? That sounds fun. Maybe to a place like the Bahamas, my wife's favorite? I'm sure the Bahamas air would be a refreshing change for you, Kristen. In fact, I've never been abroad. I'd be thrilled to go to the Bahamas. When my father-in-law suggested it, both my mother-in-law and Greg agreed that the Bahamas would be fine, and so our trip there was set. Delighted to have my first passport, I made a handmade cover from some scrap fabric and carefully stored it in my bag. Seeing this, my mother-in-law made a snide remark again. I can't believe you're getting so excited over a passport. It would be embarrassing if they thought we were all the Bahamas newbies because of you. Don't get too carried away, please. Sorry. Normally, I would have been upset by my mother-in-law's sarcasm. But the excitement of the upcoming trip greatly lessened its impact. Then, the long-awaited day of our trip to the Bahamas arrived. Upon reaching the Bahamas, we headed to a restaurant with a reserved dinner show. The venue was luxurious, with torches burning around the stage. I got totally caught up in the show, my first ever, and was ecstatic. Amazing. This is my first time seeing such a fantastic show. The food is delicious, and the staff are all so kind. Meanwhile, my mother-in-law and Greg were sitting next to me, mocking me and making loud comments. It seems like the quality of the show has dropped a bit since the last time, hasn't it? Greg, you have a good eye. I was thinking the same thing. It really doesn't stand out compared to before. I can't understand how someone can get so excited over this level. It's definitely a matter of taste. The disapproving looks from others prompted my father-in-law to try to intervene. Hey, stop it. Yet, my mother-in-law and Greg continued unabated. Well, it's just the truth. Even the food here lacks a bit of flair in presentation. Maybe they toned it down because a poor person is dining with us? As my mother-in-law and Greg continued to complain about the restaurant, my father-in-law's tone grew firmer. Enough. It's far more honorable for Kristen to genuinely enjoy the show and appreciate the staff than for you two to be spreading negativity and making everyone around uncomfortable. My mother-in-law changed her expression after being called out by her husband, who compared her to me. She turned to glare at me and stood up, approaching me. Oh, mother. As she seemed about to grab me, my mother-in-law smoothly reached into my bag and pulled out a passport with its cover. Oh, that's the tea. Ignoring my protests, she threw the passport into the torch. Oh no. Right in front of my eyes, the passport burned up along with its cover. Facing my stunned expression, she coldly declared, No need for a daughter-in-law who fools around like an idiot on a trip. Right, Greg? Caught off guard by his mother's actions, Greg hurriedly responded when called upon. Oh, yeah. Mom's right. From here on, it should just be family having fun. Kristen, don't follow us. Exactly. Now that you don't have a passport, hurry up and cry for help at the embassy. I'm sure they'll help you if you play up the poor orphan card. Kristen, you're good at that, aren't you? Indeed. Maybe the embassy will even send you back to the States. If you tell them you've never been able to travel because you had no parents. By getting sympathy to marry our son. You surely know how to play your cards right, Kristen. Mom, don't say too much, or it'll seem like I married a poor kid out of kindness. Witnessing them mock me loudly, I felt my emotions cool off. There was no point in enduring and pretending to be family with them anymore. I apologized to the staff for the disturbance and swiftly left the scene. Later, back in the States, I received a call from Greg, who was still in the Bahamas. Kristen, where did you put Mom's passport? She says she left it with you. But you didn't take it home with you, did you? There's no way I would do that. As I denied it in disbelief, my mother-in-law screamed through the phone. Liar. I definitely left it with you. You must have taken it home to spite us. Just bring it back quickly. Do you really not remember what you did with your passport? I told you. I left it with you. After that, you took it out of my bag and burned it yourself, didn't you? What? I burned it. What are you talking about? It's your passport that I burned. No, that was your passport. I returned home with my own passport. Wait. But, at that time, I definitely threw a passport with a cover into the torch. It had to be yours. Actually, I made matching covers for everyone in the family, not just for myself. I put them on when I took custody of them, so you must have gotten confused. No way. So the one I threw into the torch was? Yes, Mother, it's your passport. What am I supposed to do without a passport? Why don't you go and plead at the embassy? I've never been to an embassy, so I don't know what to do. Your father went back home without saying anything and I can't reach him. And Greg is just panicking and not being helpful at all. Oh, your husband is with me. What? With you, Kristen? Why? I switched the phone to speaker and let my father-in-law speak. Do you not understand why I went back first? You probably had some urgent work, right? But you could have at least told me. And you've paid for our lodging, haven't you? My father-in-law sighed deeply. It seems you haven't reflected on anything. Despite my warnings, you never stopped verbally abusing Kristen. I thought traveling together might improve our relationship. But all it did was show me your true, malicious nature. What are you saying? Instead of that, come and help me now since your wife is in trouble. I no longer consider you my wife. I went back early to prepare for a divorce. Divorce. I was just suggesting to Kristen that she could sue you for defamation for all the insults. Defamation. I've only told the truth. A person who wasn't raised by their parents can't possibly be decent. I was just pointing that out. You're being deceived by that woman playing the victim. My father-in-law spoke calmly. You might not remember, but my mother was also an orphan. I grew up hearing about the hardships of having no parents from her. Despite those hardships, she raised me well, and I respect her. But I never meant to belittle your mother. Looking down on someone just because they don't have parents is the same thing. Your comments also degrade my mother. I can't stand to be with someone like that any longer. Wait. That wasn't my intention. Now that I've heard your words, I can get along better with Kristen. You wouldn't have any complaints then, right? So reconsider the divorce. In a desperate plea, my mother-in-law continued, but I responded firmly. I've come to see things clearly through this ordeal. Even though I had no parents, I never lived a life that deserves pity or scorn. Beside me, my father-in-law nodded in support. Encouraged by him, I answered firmly. I don't want to be part of a family that ridicules my background. I intend to divorce Greg. And you don't need to try to get along with me anymore. Wait, Kristen. Not you two talking about divorce. There's nothing more to discuss. Goodbye. I hung up the phone and shared a smile with my father-in-law. Later, my mother-in-law somehow managed to rush to the embassy with Greg and return to the States. However, by the time she and Greg got home, my father-in-law and I had already packed up and left. Greg tried desperately to reach out to me, and my mother-in-law did the same with my father-in-law. But both of us had blocked their calls. The divorce proceedings were smoothly managed by an attorney arranged by my father-in-law, so both my divorce from Greg and their divorce were accomplished without delay. Afterwards, Greg and my mother-in-law, who had previously spent freely with my father-in-law's money, soon found themselves struggling financially on Greg's salary alone. Despite their once close relationship, tensions over finances led to constant arguments. Greg, unable to endure her verbal abuse any longer, left his mother and moved out. He started looking for a new partner. But his inability to conceal the reasons for his divorce has left him still single. Alone, my mother-in-law lives a quiet, lonely life on her pension. My father-in-law, even after the divorce, continued to support me, helping me secure a full-time job where I could be independent. Starting a new job was exciting. I learned quickly and was praised for my diligent nature. Everyone at work was kind. Though my parents passed away early, I attribute my conscientious character to the genes they left me. Grateful for having been born to them. I'm looking at their portraits to report my current happiness and pledged to live positively under their watchful eyes from heaven.